What's up guys, Rand Racer here with another tech video for you guys today. And today, I finally bring you guys my long anticipated INCASE and SPECK Hardshell case comparison video for the MacBook Pro 15-inch. And of course, without further ado, let's check out these cases, find out what features that they offer, and see if one's really better than the other. Both SPECK and INCASE are one of the top brands for hardshell cases for the MacBook Pro. They are identical in price and nearly identical in design. So what is the real difference between these two cases? Well, in this video we're going to compare them and find out the real differences between the SPECK and INCASE hardshell cases and see if one is really better than the other. So as you guys can see here, we got the SPECK on the left and the INCASE on the right. In terms of which particular model these are, that's the SPECK See-Through Clear Edition. This is the Frostwood Edition from INCASE. The first thing I guess we'll talk about is what both companies have to offer. In terms of variety, SPECK definitely takes the edge on variety. They offer a number of finishes as well as a number of different colors over the INCASE brand. INCASE only offers the Frost Editions, which are similar to SPECK's Satin series. However, the INCASE one's a little bit more rubbery. I don't have the Satin series, of course, but I do or have seen them before. This one definitely has a better grip in terms of the finish, the matte finish that it offers. And unfortunately, that's the only finish that it offers. SPECK, however, as I already mentioned, you guys can see we got the Glossy Edition here. They also have the Satin Edition as well as the Fit Edition, which is essentially the glossy one with a kind of fabric abstract look on the top here. It's pretty weird, but you can check it out on SPECK's website. In terms of design, both cases try to keep the overall look of the MacBook Pro while still providing a decent layer of protection to keep your MacBook protected from dents, scratches, and all that other sorts of stuff, similar to buying a case for a phone. Both cases have their logos imprinted on the lid, as well as using clips to hold the cases onto the MacBook. On the bottom piece of the case, both cases have 4 rubber feet built in the case for better grip, as well as cutouts for the optical drive and the ports on the side of the MacBooks, and of course cutout for the thumb part to lift the lid, as well as 2 vents, of course, to help dissipate the heat from the MacBook body. Both cases also have a built-in button to access the battery meter on the MacBook, as well as cutouts for the MacBook remote sensor and light on the front of the MacBook. In terms of differences, the SPECK case does feel a little slightly heavier than the INCASE one, and does appear that the SPECK one is slightly thicker as well. Is there advantage or disadvantage to that? Not really. It's still a hardshell plastic piece. It's not going to save your MacBook from a drop, but it will definitely help save your MacBook from scratches and dents. Even though both cases offer ventilation for the bottom part of the MacBook Pro, they are slightly different. INCASE has a full vent that is actually open, while SPECK only has this part of the case open and the other part kind of engraved in, even though it's not actually punctured through. Is this advantage or disadvantage in terms of dispersing heat in the MacBook Pro? Most of the heat in the MacBook Pro is dissipated through the actual vent on the hinge itself. Some of the heat obviously does dissipate through the body itself. Most of the heat is concentrated around the power area where you plug in your MacBook Pro, which is, I assume, why SPECK has cut out this part. The one disadvantage I find with all-out full open vent on the INCASE is that it can let more dust and debris inside between the case and the MacBook itself. Is that a huge deal? If you take your case off once in a while and clean it, it's not a huge deal, but that's just, one thing I wanted to know. Now, is one better than the other? In terms of heat dissipation, obviously the INCASE will be a little bit better since it's an actual open vent, but the SPECK one, I've been using it for 6 months now, and I definitely have not had an issue with heat with using the MacBook Pro and the SPECK hardshell. Continuing with the bottom part of the case, both cases do offer 4 built-in rubber feet, as I mentioned earlier. However, the SPECK case does offer larger rubber feet. Is that better than the INCASE one? From my experience, the INCASE one is a little bit better because I think it finds better grip than the SPECK one. Both the SPECK and INCASE bottom pieces of the case are held on using clips. 2 on the top 2 sides here. However, what they differ is the back part of the case. You guys can see here, the INCASE hardshell case is held on with the hinge, and this actually latches on behind the hinge of your MacBook Pro, and you slide your MacBook in frontwards. On the SPECK case, however, it uses the same 2-clip design on the front here, but also, instead of using a whole clip on the hinge here, it actually just uses these 2 tiny clips on the corners. Now, is that better than the INCASE offer? Well, personally, I think INCASE does have a better, more secure feel when you're using the bottom part of the case, because this entire piece is latched onto the hinge. However, in terms of my experiences, I never really had a problem with the SPECK case coming off or anything like that. Personally, I find the 2-clip design on the SPECK case a lot more easier to take off than the INCASE case. One of the second last differences between the two cases is their interior finish. So if you look at the top lids here, you guys can see here, All the spec cases have a very nice glossy sheen finish, while the INCASE cases have a nice matte finish. The nice thing about the matte finish, it gives you more like a frost look, which is what INCASE's design is intended for. And of course all these spec cases, even the satin series, don't have a matte finish. They're all glossy sheen finish. The one advantage I find with the glossy finish is that it's a lot more easier to pick out and identify any dust and debris. I find it a lot more easier on a glossy finish rather than a matte finish, because matte finish tends to almost hide that. But other than that, they're essentially, it's not really too much a difference between the two. And while we're looking at the top lids here, both cases do have these little bumpers on the corners here, and pretty much what they do is kind of prevent the case from rubbing against your MacBook. Both the rubbers here, I find the spec one a lot more, I guess, rubbery. The INCASE one feels a lot more plasticky. Not a huge difference, but they're just there to make sure that the case doesn't, make rub against your MacBook when you're installing it. Alright, the last thing I do want to compare for you guys on the bottom part of the INCASE and the SPECK Hardshell cases is the craftsmanship of both cases. And one of the things I like about the SPECK one is I think they have better craftsmanship in their cases. Reason being, I think they took more time into analyzing how this case would work on the MacBook Pro. So here's the INCASE case, and you guys see here the back is, looks like it's pretty straightforward. And of course, in comparison, we have the SPECK case here. And you guys can see there's actually a bit of a difference. If you guys can see this little groove here, the back part of the SPECK case here is actually like trimmed down. It's a lot more thinner than the rest of the case. So the reason why the SPECK case shaved down the back part of the case here is because when you open your MacBook Pro, you guys can see here there has to be enough room for the lid to actually clear the back part of the MacBook. And you guys see here there's just enough room for the case to actually lift over and back into the MacBook here on the back part, if that made any sense. But from my experience, you guys can see on the INCASE one, INCASE didn't do that, but when I used my INCASE, the back part of the MacBook Pro actually made contact with the case itself. So you guys can see here, some of the coating is actually rubbed off. I don't know if I can get a good focus on that, but there's a little spot right there where the coating actually rubbed off. Same thing on this side. You guys can see a bit of the coating rubbed off, and the reason for that has occurred is because the back of the MacBook Pro screen actually made contact with the back of the case, which is why some users report this like ticking or clicking noise when you open and close the MacBook with the INCASE one on. So it's just a little extra thing I want to show you guys that SPECK has taken kind of the extra length of more in-depth look of how the case is going to work, and if there's any issues when using the case itself, and using it includes opening and closing the lid of the MacBook. One of the biggest differences between the two cases is my experience on removing both cases. Now the SPECK case I find a lot more easier to remove off the MacBook Pro than the INCASE case, and that's definitely a huge factor because you do want to remove this case off once in a while to clean it out and make sure dust and debris doesn't collect on between the case and the MacBook, because that's how it scratches your MacBook, which is not good. But anyways, it's pretty easy for me to take off the SPECK case here. This is how I do it. I do the bottom first. I push off the two back clips, push off the two front clips, and then I'm going to pick one side, which is going to be the right side. I pretty much grab the right clip and kind of pull it off, and then push the back part off, and then kind of lift it out. And boom, good to go. Of course, the hardest part of removing any of these cases is the lid portion, which I find the SPECK one a lot more easier to remove. And for me, it's the hooks on the SPECK case are not as how would you say, not as aggressive as the INCASE one. In other words, they don't hook on to the MacBook as much as the SPECK one. So this is how I remove the SPECK case. And see, so pretty much I focus on one side, so I'm gonna focus on the right side here. I take a cloth. Take my fingers, pinch between the case and the MacBook, and kind of just use your back thumb as leverage and pull the clips off. And they're not completely pulled off, but just knocked off onto the side of the MacBook lid, if you guys can see here. So yeah, it's still on, but the clips are now on the side of the MacBook. And pretty much what you can do here, pop them off with your hands, and boom. That's how easy this SPECK case comes off, at least for me. So, but I will make another video on how to remove the SPECK case, because I do have a second version, which is this, on removing these Hardshell cases. But that's pretty much it. Alright, so last part of the video here, I'm just going to pretty much show you guys what both cases look like on the MacBook Pro here, and of course give you guys my final conclusion in the end. But anyways, this is what the INCASE Frost White case looks like on the 15-inch MacBook Pro here. Anyways, I like how the Frost White gives the overall MacBook Pro appearance, has a nice little white tint to it. And overall, it's a pretty nice looking case in my opinion. Anyways, here's the bottom side here. Here's the front side, the optical drive side, and the sides with all the ports on it. So yeah, it's a pretty nice looking case, and this is what it looks like when you open it up. Well, it doesn't really look like there's a case on it when you open it up, but that's what it looks like. So, but anyways, that's the INCASE Frost White case. And of course, this is the SPECK see-through clear. This is what it looks like on the 15-inch MacBook Pro here. And of course, if you guys want to see a full in-depth review on it, check out that review video on my channel. But anyways, one of my favorite things about the see-through clear, of course, is that it keeps the overall look of the MacBook Pro without hiding, you know, that really nice aluminum silver finish on. But anyways, here's the top part. Here's the front here. Here's the side with the ports. Here's the other side with the optical drive and the Kensington lock key. The bottom part here. So overall, guys, which case is better? Well, you guys can see here, I still have my SPECK see-through clear on here, so it's pretty obvious. I think the SPECK case is overall the better case between the two, and for three major reasons. First off, SPECK offers a full variety of colors and finishes for the MacBook Pros, all the way from the MacBook Airs to the 17-inch MacBook Pro, and of course in between. One of the second major differences I like about the SPECK is that the SPECK one is so much more easier to remove than the INCASE one. Not so much with the bottom piece, but mainly the top piece, which is the hardest part to remove on either case. But nonetheless, you guys saw in my in the clip where I removed the case, it wasn't really that bad at all. And in comparison to the INCASE one, I don't know if it's the hooks or just the overall fit of it, but the INCASE one is so much harder to remove. It's just like when you put it on, it's like locked onto the lid of the MacBook. The method I was using in that video clip of removing the case doesn't work with the INCASE one, because there's just no extra room between the case and the MacBook to dig your fingers in and, you know, snap back like it did in that video clip. So that's why I give it to the SPECK one, because it's just a much more easier case to remove. And you should remove the case from time to time, just to, you know, clean any debris, or stuff like that builds in between the case and the MacBook. Okay, the last major difference between the two cases is that I think the SPECK case is a better crafted case overall. In other words, it's I think it's better designed. You guys saw earlier in my video about how SPECK took the, you know, extra length of actually shaving down the back piece here. Here's another great example on the power MagSafe here. When Apple switched all their MacBooks to the newer L-shaped MagSafe here, I don't know if you guys can really tell in the video, but the MagSafe is actually tilted a little bit this way, because it's there's a little bit of actually extra plastic right behind the MagSafe. And on the INCASE one, when Apple switched their MagSafe, INCASE, all they did was just shave down the extra plastic piece so the MagSafe can fit. However, the SPECK one, they left a little bit of plastic there so it can be slightly angled. Alright, so the reason why SPECK decided to leave a little bit of plastic to shift the MagSafe slightly on an angle is because when you open your MacBook Pro, the top case actually adds an extra layer of plastic on the border, and because of that, when you push your MacBook Pro lid over, there has to be enough clearance between the MagSafe and the MacBook case so it doesn't, you know, make contact. With the INCASE one, it actually does make contact with the little rubber piece here on the MagSafe. Now it doesn't, you know, take it off or anything like that, but it's just one of those things that SPECK has seen and take the extra length of to make sure that doesn't occur. Nonetheless, guys, you guys can see here, I think SPECK is a better overall case, and hopefully this video is a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure it covered everything. Of course, I just wanted to make sure for you guys that you guys understand the differences between the SPECK and INCASE, because they are, I think they're pretty much the same price, $49.95. And overall, guys, I think you guys should spend that $49.95 if you're thinking of getting a Hardshell on the SPECK case. But anyways, I hope this video helps you guys make a decision, and it's pretty obvious from my standpoint of which one I would choose. Of course, this is not trying to be, or I'm not trying to be biased or anything like that. I blew money on both these cases. I just want you guys not to make the same mistake. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on the top there, and I will see you all next vid. Peace.